So first of all, it was a little disturbing to me. I'm like, oh, wait a second. Do they really know what they're doing? I mean, like, how can they guarantee quality? And maybe they don't sometimes, right? As we all know by now, that part was right. But also, they went very far, didn't they, on not really knowing
Yeah, we don't have any equipment. I mean, we contract with a termination provider to do the outbound calling, which anyone can do. It's one phone call, and you can have termination to any North American number for 0.8 cents a minute. I mean, it takes one phone call and a web server to, make the SIP request.
Yes. Okay. So I want to hear from Garry in a second because this is going to tie in really well. But my question to Pankaj is going to be from a Sonus perspective. Like, there's really is no way that BT, Orange, Deutsche Telekom, China Mobile, etc., is going to say we don't have any of our own equipment, right? They're not going to do that, right? So the question is, for the traditional SDP markets, the things that you would sell, is there any way that in the long run they'll be bought by anyone else but the largest carriers providing APIs?
So there's two ways to look at services that are provided over these converged platforms, if you will. One is the classic Twitter-like model where everything's free and hopefully they make some money from advertising. And obviously they have their own little infrastructure, probably virtualized somewhere in a server farm, and folks get online, send SMS, and essentially create a large membership audience, essentially using or receiving free services, and it's the large audience is then monetized through advertising, and those kinds of applications probably will not need or will not be able to justify those kinds of service providers. Over the top is what I call them, over the top service providers from a carrier's perspective at least.
Like Shai. Right? Yeah.
Will probably not care about an SDP because or at least will not be able to justify investment in equipment or purchasing equipment and building an infrastructure themselves, where their customer base is not necessarily expecting let's say a level of QoS that a paid customer might expect, right? But from a service provider, from a carrier or a tier 1 or tier 2 operator's point of view, if you think about it, most services that you receive from them are not free, and there's a certain level of reliability, a level of public services that you expect from them that those carriers invest in and are required by law in many cases to invest in. And that level of reliability you're not going to get for free. And I'm sure the carriers definitely understand that, and that's the reason why they're investing heavily. BT, for example, is investing hugely in their Web21 CN project, and then building the SDK on top of it. And similarly, there's Orange, of course. Orange has their own developer program. And in a way, I think your question is right. And I think the answer to it is probably yes. But at some point, I think the large service providers are going to start seeing value in subscription-based services. Meaning someone like a Google or a Microsoft or a Yahoo or a Plaxo or Comcast, whoever it is going to start seeing value in subscription-based services that go beyond just advertisement. And as soon as you start providing subscription-based services that have some level of QoS and reliability expectations associated with that, my view is that they're going to start seeing investments in technologies or platforms. Now, whether they're SDPs or their own, like Google may just build it on their own infrastructure, maybe. But there will be an investment in providing a reliable service. And it's really a subscription-based model versus an advertisement-based model. And maybe it's more than that, but those two are the obvious ones.
Okay, cool. Right. So Garry, but by the way, just a quick note to the audience. I did a podcast with Garry that I posted to my site. It's on thomashowe.com. And what I'd like you to do is, when you have a chance, just bring that up. And the reason for that is because I've heard a lot in this conference about business models and around how do you make money at this and per minute kind of stuff. And the business models and approach that Genie took is taking, I just find fascinating and very valuable and very innovative. And so what I kind of want to talk about with Garry is something which I call the vendor problem, which is if you're a service provider, by and large, you can only, to date, you can really only deploy the services that your vendors have given you to deploy, right? If you're at the vendor's mercy, more or less. What your vendors can give to you is what you can deploy, and they have vested interest in doing this, right? That's kind of how they make their money. You need the upgrade for that feature. Here's some money, right? But the services that you were talking about are really much larger than any vendor could possibly provide. So what I want you to talk about is some of the services at Call Genie, and in particular how they sort of overarch the idea of an SDP, right?
Well, let me begin by.
Can you bring the? Yeah.
Let me begin by admitting the fact that SDP is a new series of letters into my vocabulary as of the last couple of days. It's not something that Call Genie actually sees themselves participating in, just because we're a slightly different mindset of a company. One of the things, and I mentioned that we do, really Call Genie does two things. We facilitate search and we create an opportunity for advertising. And one of the solutions we have for facilitating search is the workstation environment that operators, so the people on the other side of 411, or if you're in Europe, 118, the people on the other side of that number use to do your search. Now, very traditionally, and those of you that are familiar with calling 411, these services will give you three things. They'll help you with the name, they'll give you the address, and they'll give you the phone number of what you're looking for, or what you think you're looking for. And for this wonderful opportunity, you're paying about $1.25, $1.50, in some cases up to $3. And we see this as being, in effect, a bit of a rip-off for the consumer, because they're not getting a lot of information for their money. Mm-hmm. So where we see the convergence of Web 2.0 and kind of the telco stream is in the DA environment, saying you got to get out of this mindset of selling consumers name, address, and phone number, and you have to start giving them the kind of information that's accessible to them on the web and the kind of rich information that they've become expectant of. So in doing this, we're facilitating the workstations or the operators with new technologies that actually open up the internet to them. And we're not proposing that we have all the answers or all the appropriate information. We're giving them an environment, I guess you can almost consider it a service delivery platform, through which the telcos can further expand the richness of content that they deliver to their consumers behind directory assistance, behind 411. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we provide our telcos with an SDK that they can develop themselves, and telcos are doing very creative things. One of my interests is, with all the election talk going on, I'm from Canada. To me, it's just talk. To many of you Americans, it's the real thing. But with the elections and the primaries,
it's talk here too.
Is it all?
Yeah, okay.
Well, one of the problems with elections, and one of the reasons that turnout is often low, is people really don't know where to go and vote. Now, what a wonderful feature it would be if you could just dial 411 and they can guide you to the place where you need to vote. The reason that these DA service providers can't deliver that kind of rich, valuable information today is they're locked not even in a Web 1.0, they're locked in a 0.0 kind of world today. So we're trying to expose them to the new technologies and allow them to build these ripe solutions and deliver them to their consumers.
Mm-hmm. Great. Very cool.